Hey everybody, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Sharon Show, the best
Darn.
show on the internet.
Frickin'.
I was gonna say the other F word, but I was scared.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
afraid to
I
say
was
fuck on the
scared.
podcast. Oh, I just said it. No.
Oh,
I
man.
wanted to break tradition or what is it, breaking cycles a little bit, patterns. I wanted to break the pattern a little bit. Anyway,
Were you going to say friggin'? Because that's not the same as freaking.
I know. That's why I said friggin' because it's still people. Some people don't know what it means, but if you guys want to look it up, we won't tell you. It's not what you think. It's not good. I heard it makes you go blind. That's a clue.
God.
But anyway, we're joined again by returning a current. I would say
Recurring.
he's like a regular now in the Oversharing show, which we're really excited about. But before we break too many patterns, let me read today's quote, and then Sharon
He's
will.
like a crew member, an
He's totally a crew
unofficial,
member.
unofficial contributor of the Oversharing show.
Yeah, pretty official at this point, though.
I suppose. Yeah,
As
yeah,
soon as we send the check to him. Anyway, today's quote is when we heal ourselves, we heal our ancestors from wounds that run deep in our family. When we heal our ancestors, we heal the world from wounds that run deep in humanity. And that is by Merriam Rose.
Merriam Webster? I'm just kidding.
Merriam Webster Rose.
Yeah, well, that's a very good one for today. It is very apropos, dare I say. Um, because today we're going to talk about some narcissistic things, some narcissism. And it's a topic we've covered before. I should have looked up which episode it was, but it was an older episode we did when Brandon and I first covered it. And we would like to hear some insights that Nick has brought. Well, actually, he hasn't even told us yet. He's been learning about this stuff and like had some amazing epiphanies. So he wanted to come share them with us, and we're excited about that. But first, I'm going to pull a Lord of the Rings tarot card. So here I go.
Here we go. Wait, we're not going to be talking about Wheel of Time today? No, I'm just kidding.
Dang it. Do you have a
I'm
Wheel
out.
of Time tarot?
I'm out.
Just kidding.
No, but I probably should make one right after I make the Dune
You
Tarot.
should make one. All right. The Hierophant. Indeed.
Ooh. Oh, let me pin you. There's oops. There we go. Oh. Looks like an elf.
Right?
I wonder who it is.
Are those two hobbits at the bottom?
I think they're two elves as
Oh,
well,
two
playing
elves.
flutes, I believe. Oh, that's really cool. He's got one hand up, his left hand up is up facing himself, and then he's got his right hand holding something. I can't quite see what it is. That's a cool. See that the Hierophant's a really good card because I was always when I got into tarot, I was looking into like esoteric stuff and self-healing and all that fun stuff. And the Hierophant was one that I was told was like all about controlling your inner self because you see the two people in front of them and especially in the Rider Waite, one's like the left hand side of the brain, one's the right hand side of the brain, and like the guy that's up there, the Hierophant himself, represents yourself with the correct balance, kind of like maintaining that through force of will. So it's always a good card, but again, it does represent so many other stuff, so many other things. You're gonna read it?
Yeah, and I was going to guess one of the elves, the Lord, like the Lord elves, and I couldn't remember his name, but it's on here.
Elrond?
Elrond.
Oh, okay, yeah, I thought it might be Elrond. Elron
Yeah.
Hubbard. Isn't that funny, right? You got and then Elron Hubbard. I don't, yeah, anyway.
That's funny. All right, so it says dedicated to his people and committed to protecting his home, Elrond effortlessly imparts the lessons of the Hierophant. Through generational wisdom, experience, and study, he has become a legendary ruler and keeper of knowledge. And this one breaks it down into upright and reversed, so I'll just read those. The upright says, when you open this vault of stars, be prepared to be dazzled by the secrets of the cosmos. Elrond's arrival in your reading suggests that you need to adopt the role of a learner, soaking up everything you can about your chosen path. After all, in order to make your mark, you must first understand what has come before you. And the reversed says, are you feeling rebellious? Do you have an urge to drop the diplomacy and say exactly what you're thinking? The reverse Hierophant is guiding you to reject the structured, peaceful approach you've been taking and try something new.
Ooh, I like that reverse definition. So many reverse definitions are like a negative thing. This is just
Right.
looking at it.
I've noticed that when I pull from this deck, they're not like that. They're a little bit slightly different, but they're not like they don't have a negative take, which I like that about this deck.
Yeah, and for those who haven't read the books and just seen the movies, Elrond and Aragorn have such a different relationship. He's basically like his father in the book. He raised him, and there was never any question of like Aragorn being the king. Like he never was a little wimp about it, and Elrond was never like trying to convince his daughter to leave and go across. They were just like, "Let's do this, man. We're gonna kill it." So I definitely recommend checking out those books.
Yeah, I'm now in the Two Towers audiobook. I just
Ooh,
started it. So,
what do you think as compared to the movie?
well, what's funny is I watched the movie so long. I watched the series of movies so long ago that I don't recall. So I'll watch them after I listen.
Good
Um,
idea.
yeah. But I just feel more mature and more uh ready in my mind to listen and read these stories because before they were just like a story, like they're just entertainment, you know? And I wasn't really paying attention to the plot or like I was just watching it for pure entertainment. Like, oh, these guys are fighting, this guy is going to somewhere, and this little hobbit here, he's cute and funny, and this, I just, watched it for pure entertainment.
Yeah, that's the good thing about those movies because there's still a lot of uh, good things, good messages in the movies that people are going to get despite all the battle scenes. Not that I have anything wrong with the battle scenes, but I'm saying, like they're going to learn some things hopefully. So it's cool. It's like coded in there. But anyway, what's up, Nick? How you doing? Welcome back to the show.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. It's
Pleasure
a
to have
cloudy,
you.
rainy day here in Oregon, so my DNA is awakening
Back to normal in
back
Oregon?
to back to normal. Yeah. Yep. I feel I feel calm today, more calm than I have in a long time. I mean, it could have
Good.
something to do with the fact that I finally admitted defeat recently, Pacific Northwest defeat, and started taking vitamin D.
Oh,
So like
wow.
I feel pretty calm. I feel great. But no, it is nice. It's weird. Some people don't understand it, but it's like living here when it rains for 8 or 9 months out of the year and it's just overcast. I love it. I love
Okay.
it. But I'm also like a pretty introverted deep thinker. And I feel like I don't do that during summer when it's like super bright and sunny out and stuff. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
I that's the time where I feel like I have to go and get stuff done. I
Mm-hmm.
really like the overcast fall. It allows me to just be calm and quiet and think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
makes
love
sense.
that. You wouldn't survive in sunny Phoenix, Arizona.
No, no, I'm Irish and Scottish. The sun is my enemy. I belong like in a cave on the ocean eating like moss off the side of a rock or something. I don't do well with the sun at all. I'm one of those people who just burns and then it flakes off and I'm whiter than I was prior
Oh,
to being burned. It's an issue.
When you
uh,
move to Phoenix and you're just like a dried up husk after like a week, you're like, get me out of here, or like Gollum.
Yeah, I'd be like that SpongeBob meme where he's all dried out.
Yeah.
that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no,
Oh
I'm excited
man.
to come back on with you guys. I love being here. I like being able to just have big talks with you guys about big ideas because it's something that I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on what circles you're in, but I've noticed a very stark decrease in the ability to even have conversations like this. Um more widely even than like 10 years ago. I feel like even 10 years ago people were talking about things more, and now it's like everyone's scared to even say anything because they don't want to offend anybody. And I'm like, okay, I'm still going to do it. I don't care. Like, how do you grow if you don't share ideas and think? It's
Yeah.
pretty weird.
I was thinking about that too the other day, about certain topics that are totally taboo, that like you really can't really talk about them. And I remembered when Brandon and it was around I think it was around episode 6, that Brandon and I wanted to do like an underground episode and talk about some taboo stuff. We never did it, but I just was thinking in my head, I kind of want to go back and like think about that and see maybe if we could that, and then like I would only send that to people I know are okay with you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
share that with just anybody,
Yeah.
Don't
because
share
they're
that with the world.
just too taboo, you know.
We could call under Sharon.
It'd be underground over Sharon. That's funny.
Yeah, exactly. Under
Uh,
Sharon, the underground. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's funny.
I remember that topic. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple more we could include in there, to make it
If
a
you
bit
guys
long.
that are listening and watching the show want to hear or know what we're talking about, leave a comment. Maybe we'll do that episode if you want it.
Maybe, yeah.
Bother us.
But yes, thank you,
I'm
Nick.
gonna have an existential crisis if you guys don't. It's going to pique
No,
my interest and I need it.
I totally agree with what you're saying, but in my life though, I've noticed that more people are a little open to talk about this than I've thought in the past. Like I just recorded or actually went live with a friend of mine, Pat Oats. Go check that out. It's on my channel and it's under the Brandon Bonanza playlist. And we talked about a lot of stuff, how we've grown, because I've known him for about 10 years now. So how we've grown over the past 10 years in comedy and stuff in life. And the topic of narcissism definitely did come up because Pat had a relationship with this woman that was just like stalker's not even the level. She like allegedly got him fired from a job. It's like during 2020, he was working at a retail store and then he was telling jokes about it and he would talk about it on his podcast. And she like sent it to corporate and was like, he's making fun of, yeah. And of course, they denied it was her and whatever, all these people. But he's like, it's the only person it could have been, because of the other stuff that had happened, like police involvement and all this allegedly stuff. But yeah, so I think some more people.
Pre-crime.
Yeah, except pre-crime.
Freaking
People are
retarded.
open. No, she definitely committed present crimes. Allegedly, like smashing.
What I mean is like people like coming after Pat Oats for
yeah.
just saying something.
Yeah.
What happened to freedom of speech,
Yeah. Well, I guess it's in their employee handbook or something. You're not supposed to like publicly talk about, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, but it was good for him because it made him hustle more. Like it worked out. It's really cool.
Oh yeah, it always
cycles that happen in people's lives,
yeah.
right? Like, and he even views it that way now. So but I hear what you're saying though, because I feel like there's groups of people online that used to be kind of into this stuff, but then anytime like a psyop happens, a lot of people just run right into this team A or team B kind of thing, and they feel like they have to support the truth when we always say, listen, the truth doesn't need any defense, like it's there. We all know that one country across the sea that everybody hates is terrible. We all know it, even though everyone says they're great on the media. We all know they have nefarious plans going on. No one needs to remind anyone, I guess. But I do like some of the memes, but that's how I get my news these days, really, is from memes. Like I used to follow all the foreign policy very closely, but I kind of just stepped away from all that stuff because I know what I need to know now, and it's like
it's nonsense.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, it really is.
Totally. And boring, honestly. Super boring. Like, why am I looking at this?
Yeah, that's where I kind of get mildly disappointed. Is there's so much cool stuff that we could be talking about, but we're talking about the same country.
Yeah, I've talked about this before. I feel like when people are doing that, It's cool. The meme warriors are out there and they're trying to raise awareness and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's like an echo chamber. There's like certain groups of people that only follow themselves. So it's like, who are you really talking to? But I get the meme warriors that are out there just in general doing it. But really what it is, though, is you're in the realm of effects, right? You're already out in where things are already happening. So you can't stop anything really, or there's just like more momentum. It's more about getting, for us anyway, it's more about getting to the root of the problems and the root causes, because you can name like a million problems and all of them can stem from this topic that we're going to talk about today, right? So
Yeah, healing yourself and noticing the mirror in order to heal yourself.
yeah. And then you
And
get
like those meme accounts, be conscious of why you're doing it as well. There's nothing wrong with sharing a meme, especially
Intention.
if it's like there's truth to it or it makes somebody laugh. But if you're going into it with the expectation of other people that they're now going to change because they were graced with your divine meme, and then they don't respond, and then you internalize that and you're just damaging yourself. It's a weird paradox there.
Indeed. So
All right, let's talk about reincarnation.
oh yes,
yeah.
I love it. Let's do it.
So we're going to talk. I have like a very short presentation, and I'll try to keep this more conversational this time. But
Sure.
I really wanted to talk about narcissism in general because that's a big one, and that word gets thrown around a lot. And I think it's kind of like when people talk about religion and they talk about Gnostics, there was no such thing as Gnostics. Gnostics were just first, second, third, and into the fourth century BC or AD Christians. Like that's what they were, but they lumped them all together, right? The same thing has happened with the word narcissist or narcissism. So I kind of want to make that delineation there that not everything is narcissism, right? Like if somebody is rude to you on a street corner, they're not a narcissist. You don't default to that. But then also talk about a couple other ones which are similar but much different. And then I thought it would be interesting to get into why these things develop, and then the trauma and spiritual implications of all of these and the roots of all of them. So if that sounds interesting to you guys, I guess I'll just lay down like the kindergarten Cliff Notes versions of these. I want to talk about narcissism, borderline personality disorder, and then severe like empaths,
When you're just done with that little mini intro, I'll jump in for a second.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, when we talked about this before, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that I see narcissism as like on a spectrum. So when you said like you can't just like label it, if you want to label it that's fine. But as long as you know that it's on a spectrum, just because that guy on the street called you whatever he called you and was rude to you, maybe he's like very low on the spectrum as compared to someone else, right? Like, and it's just a word to use for people who have become self-centered and like don't treat other people with respect.
Yeah.
I think personally that's how I see that word being used.
And you can have narcissistic traits as well, which doesn't mean you're an actual narcissist. It just means you have the traits, for sure.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say. I'm like, somebody could display a narcissistic behavior, or they could do something that could be considered narcissistic, but it doesn't mean that they are like a classic narcissist. And another thing I could say is like the way our language works, we just go right to like the best adjective or descriptive thing for somebody, like the craziest one. Like we just say awesome these days for like no reason, when awesome means like full of awe. We're like, wow, this omelet is awesome. Like, really? This omelet inspires your
Dude, I've thought about that for years with that exact word. It's like, it's so weird that we use that as a descriptor.
Yeah.
It's just like when words get become a thing to use. Like when everything started being like, that's bad, like, I'm bad, I'm
Yeah.
bad, it. And it's like, well, what does he mean by bad? Was it the opposite of what it used to mean? And then you didn't know what meant what anymore. Like, which context are you using bad? Like, that's, yeah, anyway. There's other words like that too that sound like they're bad and
It's
or
shocking
negative.
when you
Yeah.
really start to observe language, how many words you're like, this doesn't make any sense at all to be in this sentence. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
weird.
And I feel like that's what happened with this word narcissist, same thing. So it's a good thing we put out all these little qualifiers kind of to exactly explain what we're talking about. So yeah.
Yep. All right, so I'll dive in. Narcissism at its core is an a literal inability to self-reflect and have remorse. So the true narcissist, and there's a spectrum there, but at the core of it, narcissism is an inability to look back on your own actions and see how they could have impacted other people. And that is not I don't believe that's a choice either. That's I want to really make that clear. It's not a choice. The narcissist doesn't know that they're doing anything wrong when by not being able to go back. That's just their reality. So we see narcissism. We always think of the textbook signs of it, right? Like the manipulation and the pathological lying. The gaslighting is a huge one. The cycles of love bombing and then dehumanizing. That's a very huge one. For those who aren't aware of what that is, basically the narcissist will, they call it breadcrumbing. It's the same thing as that cycle of love bombing and then dehumanizing, where they will emotionally, psychologically, physically, financially abuse you for a certain amount of time. And then the narcissist eventually says they get the perception that you're about to be fed up. So then they will give you just enough affection or just enough attention or just enough, communication or love or whatever it is to bring your guard down again, give you a little bit of hope. And then they continue that cycle. They'll abuse you again. And then when they see that you're about ready to walk, then they'll give you a little bit more. So that's that cycle. That's the love bombing and dehumanizing cycle. So these are all things that narcissists do, but at the core, the reason that they're doing it is because they have no ability to look back and see what their actions or words or whatever it was they did affected, how it affected somebody. So that's why I say not everybody is a narcissist. Some people are just having a bad day. Like that doesn't mean that they're not able to see what they did or have remorse. It doesn't mean they're going to go home and not feel bad about it. They just had a bad day. We all have bad days. So that's narcissism. Narcissism is it's extreme. And that's why you can have narcissistic traits. You could be completely normal but be acting like a narcissist. But you have that ability to self-reflect and look back and put yourself in somebody else's shoes and see how your behavior could have damaged them or traumatized them.
That's a valid point, if I may interject.
Yeah, of course.
Because when I was studying and looking into narcissism, after I had walked away from the last relationship I was in, which I had come to the conclusion that that's what it was. And like you said, he was probably not really aware and had no ability to self-reflect because he was like, his own brother described him to be just this loving person and like without a negative bone in his body. Like he wasn't mean to people. Like he was just a loving person. So, but he probably didn't realize the walls he had put up in order to like not be hurt. But this whole like breadcrumbing thing, he did that to me. Like at the very, very end, like once I'd walked away, he started doing that to me, and I didn't go back. But there was something you said at the very end that triggered my thought, and now I lost it. What was the last thing you were saying?
I was talking about how people can have narcissistic traits but not actually be a narcissist.
Okay. So what I was going to say was that when you have, I was studying all this because I was in that relationship, right? And it made me look into like what narcissism was. And there was this one author who describes the narcissist and the codependent. He renames the codependent because he doesn't like that word for it. But he has a book, I think, that calls it the human magnet, because these two types magnetize to each other. And the way you're describing it, and the reason why some people say there's no healing for narcissists, because like true narcissists, is that, and I think it's because of what you said, there's no ability to reflect back on what they've done. They don't have that ability for whatever reason. They blocked it from their childhood. But
there's nothing to heal from in their reality.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't want to be accused. I know this because I would tell him, like, maybe you need to go to some therapy and heal from some things. And he would say, no, he didn't need to do that. But like what my thought was, is this other side of it, this codependent who's always ends up magnetized to the narcissist, does have that, like they sometimes get labeled as narcissists too, because sometimes maybe they're emulating the narcissist, or they have to defend themselves as well because they're being gaslighted and all these things. And so sometimes they even ask themselves, am I the narcissist? Like, because their minds are going so, but the thing is, the fact that they're actually asking themselves and they have the ability to self-reflect kind of shows that they're not, because they can be self-reflective and say, okay, what is going on here? How can I, what am I doing to contribute to this? Am I doing something? Can I do something better? Can I do something different? And so now what you said about that, the narcissist inability to self-reflect totally feels like it answers a question for me for like why, or what the other aspect of that is, which is the quote codependent, or however you want to rename that, because those people do have the ability and then end up healing. A lot of them end up healing from it because they see that when they're ready to, but they see that narcissistic behavior as a mirror, and then they look and reflect on themselves and say, I need to figure this thing out.
Yeah, totally. I forget if it was Freud or Jung, but one of them said, if you've ever asked yourself if you're a psychopath, you're not a psychopath. And it's the same exact thing. If you have the ability to question yourself like that, or to look back, and it's not exaggeration either. Like the narcissist literally they cannot look into their past and see how they could have caused anything. So if you're ever dealing with a narcissist, please understand that, and don't think that it's anything that you've done. Like they cannot put these pieces together. They're living in such a shattered version of reality that it is quite frankly astounding that they're even able to function in society. It's bizarre. But yeah, what you said too about codependence, it's true. It's like narcissists and empaths always attract for that same reason. Like both are extremely broken. I'm going to say that right now. Both are extremely broken, but for different reasons and different outcomes from their trauma. So that's a little brief snippet of what narcissism is. I would say the next one I want to touch on real quick is borderline personality disorder. A lot of people lump this in with narcissism or say that it's almost identical to narcissism. I think it's actually the exact opposite. I think that the way that narcissism is understood to develop is a child, a baby, a toddler is not having their emotional needs met. And, physical needs as well play into that. And then, mental stimulation in early development are not met. Those can play into it, but ultimately it's emotional that is not met that causes the narcissist pattern to form. And it's not like a light switch where a baby just one day is completely normal and innocent and pure, and then the next day they're a narcissist. This is a developmental type thing. It's a slow shattering of your perception of reality that causes you to morph into this thing. So the child's emotional needs are not being met. Eventually that child, the cycle of a child developing into a narcissist basically goes, first the child will start whining and screaming and crying. They're being vocal. They're letting the parent know I'm not happy, right? They don't have the language to express themselves, but they sure can scream. And then if their needs are still not being met, then the child will get super angry and start throwing really bad tantrums, and they'll start hitting, And then if the needs are still not met, then the child will become quiet. And that's the seed of narcissism being planted, is the child becomes quiet because the child is no longer looking to the external world to have their needs met from the people that should be meeting their needs. They've now become internal. They're going into themselves. They're becoming self-absorbed. They're absorbed into their own self because the outside world is just causing them pain and disappointment. And then, 10, 20 years later, that pattern has escalated to a point where there's a literal psychotic break in the narcissist's mind, and they do not trust anybody. It's like a subconscious belief that nobody will ever be able to help them or do anything for them, so they have to do it themselves by any means necessary, by manipulating, by lying, by using people, by doing all of this. But in that, they lose their ability. Whoa, bumped the table. They lose their ability to love. Just plain and simple, they lose their
because
ability
they don't
to
know how
love.
to. They don't know how. They've never been given an example.
Yeah,
So they can't emulate the example.
Exactly.
They have
so
no
you
reference point.
You'll see a narcissist claim that they love people. Oh, I love my wife. Oh, I love my children. The narcissist, and this is not an opinion, this is fact. The narcissist loves their partner or their children as far as their partner or their children will gain them status, gain them resources, because the narcissist is living in a constant fight or flight survival mode. So these are tools, these are pawns to be moved around to get them more resources, to get them more energy, to get whatever it is that they need. Narcissism is pretty messed up. So borderline personality disorder has essentially the same upbringing, right? The same cycle of trauma, the same cycle of emotional needs not being met. And what comes from that, people say that it's closely related to narcissism. Some people group them together. I tend to, from everything that I've learned, I would call it like the exact opposite, because the narcissist cannot self-reflect. They don't know what remorse is. The borderline personality disorder, a lot of them do have narcissistic traits, but at their core, they want nothing more than love. That's the textbook person with a million walls up is what I would classify as like borderline personality disorder. They want nothing more than love. They want nothing more to love other people. They just can't because of that trauma. There's these walls blocking them off, and they do exhibit a lot of narcissistic traits as well, because those are defense mechanisms, right? You cannot get hurt if you're in control of a situation. But at the core, it's completely different, because the narcissist, I don't believe, wants love or wants to love people. The narcissist is in survival mode. They couldn't care less about those things. And then the last one that I want to touch on is what we would call empaths. Again, born and bred from the same exact trauma, but a different outcome. The empath is the type of person who, and I know this because I'm an empath, and I used to think that it was a superpower, and it kind of is in a way, but it's also very sad how it developed. The empath can walk into a room and it's like a sixth sense where they go, that person is sad, that person's angry, that person is a threat, that person is really happy. Nobody has to say a word. Nobody has to even look at them. They can walk in and feel the energies coming off of these people. And the empath is extremely compassionate, extremely, they'll give you the shirt off of their back. They just want to help. They want to help people. But also the empath carries around probably more anger than anybody else. It's something that people don't often talk about. The empath is calm and collected on the outside. The empath is typically roiling with anger on the inside because they're so tired and they're so fed up with dealing with fake people and manipulation and bullshit. And but it's kind of like a superpower. And that was born because they had typically emotionally unstable parents, or guardians, or just home life, right? So the empath, as a toddler, learned to take all of these cues. It could be the way that somebody blinks. It could be the way that somebody breathes. It could be the way that somebody moves. All these little tiny things that most people don't even register when they're observing another human being. The empath, in a nanosecond, calculates all of it and goes, okay, that person is potentially going to get angry. That person is super sad right now, because that was their survival mechanism as a child, was to understand that mommy or daddy is going to, pop off in 10 minutes because I just saw their forehead twitch. It's such a survival mechanism. And then the empath typically goes on to become a people pleaser, right? Anything that you can do to stop that explosion from happening. So those are the three types that I wanted to touch on. There's obviously more. There's hundreds of these different personality disorders, but those three are the most fascinating to me because they're all born from the same exact circumstances, but you get three completely different outcomes. And then I will pause there and let you guys talk. And then I want to talk about reincarnation and how it plays into all this. Get into the good stuff.
Okay, I noticed how you talked about the empath, and I've heard other people call that other side like the codependent. I don't know if they are. I mean, everybody uses different kind of words, but maybe there's just different, now that I think about it, maybe there's just different types of people that are attracted to that narcissistic
thing, so
because
I will say the empath and the narcissist always attract, because the narcissist plays three roles. They have three different personalities. They have the victim, the hero, or the martyr. And at any given point, they're in one of those three. And if you've ever dealt with a narcissist, you will know this. Everybody's out to get me. I'm a victim. Everybody's trying to cancel me, whatever it is. The hero, I saved the world. I stood up to this. I did this for you. I saved you. You wouldn't be here without me. Or the martyr. Those are the three that the narcissist plays 100% of the time, and they can shift through them in a single conversation. In one, they could put out one tweet and be playing all three of them. It's bizarre. But the empath is drawn to that in a way because it's comfort. And we've talked about this before, but if your whole childhood is growing up with that, then there is that sense of comfort when you have somebody
they've always known.
It's an emotionally unstable person who, on the surface, the empath goes, that person needs a lot of help. That person is not balanced. That person is always angry, using people, whatever. So then the empath, being the people pleaser, goes, I could help them. And that is why narcissists and empaths are always ending up together, is because the narcissist wants a source for their supply. That's what they call it. It could be attention. It could be sex. It could be money. It could be praise, negative attention, all of these things. That's lumped into the term supply. It's a narcissist supply. And the narcissist is only concerned with getting that supply from you. So the no easier target is there than the empath, who is willing to give the supply. They want to give the supply because all they want to do is help people and stop them from being unstable like that. So yeah, there's an attraction there 100%. That's what most narcissist relationships are. And that's why most people that are damaged by narcissists take it so strongly, and it takes years to get over that trauma of being with the narcissist, is because they had typically pure intentions of trying to help somebody, and then to realize that you just got duped, it's very traumatizing. Narcissistic emotional and psychological abuse is some of the worst that you can ever endure in life. That's not an exaggeration. This is very well known. If you're in a narcissistic relationship and you experience that emotional and psychological abuse, it's so severe. It's one of the most shattering things that you can ever endure.
I thought of this as you were talking, because when I was looking into narcissism, I came across this type of narcissism called covert narcissism. I think what the one that you were describing is like really overt narcissists who talk about themselves. They get up in a room and they're the center of attention and they draw all this attention to themselves and that sort of thing. Whereas the covert ones don't have those aspects. So you're not even like, I feel like you wouldn't even know that they're a narcissist because you can't see those aspects of them like overtly. So anyway, I say that because those are the videos that I watched that were most, for me, were like, oh, okay, that's why I didn't realize he was a narcissist. And mind you, that's still a label that I'm putting on him. He may not have been. He may have been something else. I don't know. But yes, a lot of those things did match up.
So the medical term for that is covert narcissist, excuse me, versus they call it a malignant narcissist. And those are the type of people that want the spotlight. They're screaming out to the world how great they are. That's a malignant narcissist. The covert narcissist you often see in women, especially. They're not out there on a pedestal screaming at everybody. They're just in the home abusing spouses, abusing children, abusing friends, whatever.
And another thing I think about narcissism, especially covert narcissism, why people might not spot it is because of that love bombing that you were talking about. Because it seems, after I found out about this concept of love bombing, it kind of blew my mind because I see it in even if just little degrees with people that they might just give you all these compliments like out of nowhere, either when you first meet them or if it's somebody even if it's like in a work relationship, right? And then you show up and then they're just like saying all these great things about you, but then their actions aren't really, like you're thinking to yourself like, well, if you think I'm such a great guy, then why are you acting like such a dick to me, like, or why are you acting this way? And I think that love bombing, maybe we can even kind of define that for people a little bit so they know they have I was thinking, I mentioned it, yeah.
So the cycle of love bombing is what they call the stage when you get into a relationship with a narcissist, and then beyond. But it's typically when you first start a relationship with a narcissist, it seems like you have won the lottery. They treat you better than anybody ever has. They give you more love, more affection, more intimacy, more compliments, more everything than anybody ever has. And so and it's pretty bizarre when you think about the biological ramifications of that. This stage typically lasts for 6 months to a year of them just being beautiful people, perfect. You can't find a flaw in them. What that's doing to you is it's creating a dopamine reaction in your brain, and they're literally trauma bonding themselves to you. It's very sick. It's very sick. But it creates this bond where you've had enough time that you've created a chemical dependency to them, right? You need their admiration, their attention, their love, their intimacy, their affection. And then once they have hooked you, then they completely switch gears and they start abusing you. And that could be lying,
Gaslighting.
manipulating, gaslighting. Gaslighting is the major one, right? So the narcissist will keep you in a relationship for an extended period of time. And then the narcissist will basically, they'll try to make you feel like you're the crazy one in the relationship for
Yes.
having completely rational reactions and emotions to things. Because the narcissist is looking for a reaction from you. And to understand this, you have to understand what narcissism is when it comes to emotions. So basically, human beings typically have an emotion, right? An emotion is presented to us. And then that emotion, if we choose to focus on it, turns into a feeling. So now we're feeling it in our body. We're having a feeling. So most people are capable of, what's the term that I'm looking for? They can take that emotion and they can like self-regulate their emotions, right? You'll have the emotion, it'll turn into a feeling for a minute, and then you will be able to self-regulate and say, okay, I'm angry that that person cut me off, but 30 seconds later you're going, it's not a big deal. I don't need to focus on this. It's not affecting my life in any way. That's self-regulation. And that's what parents are supposed to teach their children how to do. Narcissists were never taught that. So the narcissist cannot, not only can they not go back in time and see how their actions have changed people, they cannot self-regulate their own emotions. They are incapable of turning an emotion or a feeling off until they are able to act that out with somebody else, which is why gaslighting is the number one tool that they use, because the narcissist could say, I'm angry. Well, the narcissist can't turn off their anger. So what the narcissist now has to do is create a situation with somebody else where the other person is now angry. They'll create an argument. And then the narcissist is able to expel their anger onto that person. And then the narcissist goes, okay, now I don't feel angry anymore. It's psychotic. It's textbook psychotic. And the narcissist truly does. They go into a state of psychosis when this happens, when they're getting into that extreme gaslighting. And it's wild. It's wild. But yeah, that's what gaslighting is. They try to make you feel like you are, often results in the recipient doubting their perception of reality and their sanity. Exactly. So the narcissist will do something to you, and then the narcissist will tell you that you are crazy for having that reaction, because that gets you to doubt yourself. And then maybe a day, a week, a month later, you end up apologizing to the narcissist for something that you did not even do, that they did on purpose, consciously, in order to get a reaction from you. It's a sick, twisted cycle. And you see this like in individual relationships. You see it, the saddest one for me is between parents and their children. Parents are always gaslighting their children. It is insane. And that perpetuates this cycle of the creation of narcissists. And then you'll see it on a bigger picture too. You will see public figures, people out there publicly doing it to large groups of people. And that's also extremely sad for me to see an entire group of people unable to even see that they are the recipients of narcissistic rage, and dehumanizing.
Yeah. The word gaslighting came from a movie called Gaslight from 1944, and this is just brief, but you can look into it if you want, but it's just, I think in the movie, the man slowly starts turning all the lights, dimming the lights in the house, and she's noticing it, and she's saying, why does the house feel so dark? And he's like, it's not dark. You're going crazy. He's doing that to her. So he's starting to make her feel crazy. So that's where the term gaslighting came from. And so it's just an example, but this can happen in many ways. And it's basically like you can try to show them proof that they did something that they said they never did. And you can go show them proof. You can have screenshots, you can have whatever. And they will deny it to the end of the earth. They will deny it. Like it's
the cycle of when a narcissist understands that you've found them out is bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the hard things too, is that when a person goes through that narcissist rage, when they've been found out, it's the same for everybody. Different details and different circumstances, but it's the same pattern. The narcissist will first they'll try to gaslight you and make you feel crazy. If that doesn't work, then they'll just straight up lie. If that doesn't work, oftentimes they will run a gigantic smear campaign. That is textbook narcissist 101. They will smear you to anybody and everybody. They will make up crazy lies, accusations. They will project everything that they did to you. They will smear and try to say that you did it to them. And we see this all the time, sometimes on very large scales. And
I was going to say, what's really funny is that you're like describing my whole dating life throughout most of my life. Like either I was displaying some of these behaviors, or I was subject to some of these behaviors, or just people I know that were dating people were subject to these behaviors. So I think the fact that these behaviors are so prevalent in our society leads people to call everybody a narcissist, and that goes back to what we were saying before, where I think it's more about, just looking out for yourself. Like you don't have to go around, not you guys, but people don't have to go around calling everybody else a narcissist and blaming, and because that just makes you a victim. It puts you right in that victimhood. It's like, well, this person did this, and this to me, so that's their fault. They're a narcissist, and I'm just this innocent
No,
person.
you know when you're actually dealing with a narcissist. There's a lot of people coming out on TikTok too, which has been really cool to see, talking about narcissism and stuff, giving people a really good understanding of what it's like to be with one. I saw one the other day, and someone was like, "Have you ever gotten into an argument?" What did she say? Have you ever gotten into an argument and you have no idea why it started, and it lasted for 7 hours, and at the end of it, you were physically, emotionally, mentally exhausted, and you looked back at those 7 hours and went, what even happened?
Yeah. What did you even talk about?
What did you even talk defending? About? Nothing got resolved.
No.
There was no forward motion, whatever. And then you look at your partner and they seem completely unfazed. And I was like, that is wild to think about. That is wild. But it's because that narcissist in that argument was consuming. They were getting their supply. They're going to keep it going as long as they possibly can. But yeah, so narcissism is crazy. So
just as a quick note too, you're also mentioning that narcissists will go into like a fit of a rage.
Yeah.
And they'll like it's like psychotic. It's like almost like they don't even realize that they're going into this like crazy rage.
It's an actual psychotic break in their mind.
And I've seen it because this is the way my ex-boyfriend used to behave. If I brought up something that he didn't want to be found out about, like who he was texting or who he was calling, he literally, his face went red, his eyes bulged out, and he was like yelling at me and in my face, like, because he'd been found out.
And that is the number one time where you'll see that psychotic break happen.
Denying it. Absolutely.
Yeah. When like you provide the narcissist with proof that you have found them out, or that they are wrong, and especially if you do it publicly, that's when that narc rage comes out. And that's when the smear campaigns happen. The narcissist will do and say whatever they need to get the eyes of the public off of them and shift it onto somebody else. Blame shifting is another number one tactic of the narcissist. Yeah. So if you ever see that publicly happening, in your own life or online or in groups, you probably know what
Yes.
you're dealing with there.
It's funny because it makes me think of all this stuff you're saying. Just like, man, because I feel like I've displayed a lot of this behavior in relationships before. Not that I was in like tons of relationships, but even just casual, whatever it was, I would display some of this. And the change that I had in my life that I write about in my book, so go check it out, shototwork.com, where I feel like the major shift was where I went from thinking that I was the center of the universe to actually realizing that I'm not the center of the universe. So when I thought I was the center of the universe and nothing really mattered, and when you died, you just rotted in the ground, so who gives a shit? I would just, party like it was 1999, even if it was like 98 or whatever, just like going crazy. And then I had this whole epiphany about it, and it really kind of blew my mind. And, because people would always say that I was a nice guy and all this stuff. And I know that the nice guy thing doesn't mean that you're actually a good person. Like you said,
It's
you
a
could be
facade.
a people pleaser, or you could just be love bombing. Because I feel like that's what would happen in the last relationship that I was in. It ended over like about 11 years ago, 10, 11 years ago. And I would, of course, I was like trying to hook up on the side. Like I didn't even care. And the way that I looked at it was I met this woman and we dated for a few months, or, whatever. We were hanging out a bunch, and she really wanted to be in a relationship with me. So she kind of got me to this point where I just agreed. So I was always just like, I never even wanted this in the first place. So who cares? And again, I didn't think about anyone else's feelings. Like I didn't care. I was just like, swinging my thing all over. And um whenever I got close to getting caught or whatever, that's what I would do. I would just like freak out. I mean, I know you guys know me as this great person, but yeah, I have had a lot of rage. I can still tap into it if I need it, so don't try anything. Not you guys I'm talking about. No. But yeah,
He's
so
a heathen, not a hippie, you guys.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But I feel like that one major shift is really what it was for me. And of course, it's not like I just had the shift and everything was great. I've been working on stuff and I still work on stuff to this day. But I feel like that's really what it is. And so maybe that's why a lot of people say that narcissism can't be cured or whatever, because I think it has to be like a thing that they see, and it probably is so hard for people to actually see it unless you're looking for it actively or whatever it was. But I was on stage all the time talking about everything. I talk about my life, my behavior. So I was constantly confronting it. And then once I started meditating, I really think that was the key for me. That, and then I started smoking weed and like doing mushrooms and stuff like that. But I was doing it because I wanted to um do more self exploration. Like I wanted to see what the universe had to tell me. So I was open to it. So I feel like when people say, I mean, I don't know how you feel, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but when you hear people say that narcissists can't be cured, I think it's more along the lines of like, there's nothing you could really do for that person. They have to figure it out for themselves and actually want to
Yes.
do it and then do it. And still to this day, um, not like I have the tendencies or whatever, but that behavior is still in my mind. Like I know I could still do it if I wanted to or whatever, but I just choose. It's like, why would I do that? I don't know. And I think it's funny because it goes back to my upbringing with just in different religions, because every time I was always told you had to be good or you're going to go to hell. You have to be good or you're going to go to hell. There was no explanation why you should be a good person, or, society works better, or why should you treat your neighbor like yourself, and what are the benefits and what are the negative things. It was just like, no, you're going to go to hell if you don't. And if you do, you'll go to heaven. So I couldn't find any reward right here in the now. And then once I came across astrotheology and all this stuff early in my life, I thought it was all this higher power stuff was just crap. I thought it was just like all woo woo, and it wasn't real. And it was just like a control system. I kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. So that's um, when my behavior probably got even worse. I had to
Yeah.
get that before it got better.
And you can like carry narcissistic behaviors with you and not be a narcissist. The fact that you were able to self-reflect and say, I'm not the center of the universe, means that you're not a narcissist. You could carry every trait that a narcissist does and use all those behaviors, but those could all be learned behaviors from dealing with narcissists in your own life.
Absolutely.
And seeing how effective they are. Because it's not like these behaviors that the narcissist is using are ineffective. They're extremely effective.
That's why
narcissists are the top of Fortune 500 companies. They're the ones that own all the businesses. They're the world leaders. They're all these people because they're so good at influencing and manipulating people. So it makes sense that you would see that in the world around you and go, okay, well, I need to mimic that behavior if I want that level of success, whatever that success may be.
Yeah.
It completely makes sense. Yeah.
And you know what's really crazy about, because you say world leaders, in our circles, when coming up through the truther stuff, we hear about like satanic families and all this stuff and how they raise their children, but they're basically just breeding narcissists by this trauma that they put these kids through.
Yeah.
And these kids either survive it and grow up to be narcissists, or maybe sometimes for whatever reason they're the whistleblower of it or whatever. But even then, you get somebody like Alex Jones or whatever, who apparently is like connected. He could maybe fall out of that, but then still display these behaviors. But he thinks he's doing good in the world. Like it's
And narcissists. Just to touch on what you had said about narcissists healing, real quick. Typically they can't, but it is for the reason that you said. The narcissist, you cannot force somebody to heal. The narcissist has to first admit that there's a problem inside of them. And that first step right there is where 99.9% of narcissists, they cannot see it. So in theory, a narcissist can be cured, which it's not even so much a cure. It's a change of thinking and a change of behavior. And that's what makes it so wild, is most people are able to see something and say, I need to change my behavior. The narcissist can't, but yeah, narcissists have been changed.
I just want to say really quick.
Go ahead. I have something to say after you. Go ahead.
Well, I think maybe a near-death experience is something that could, because I've had a near-death
100%. A lot of people have been cured from this and I'm not condoning this or whatever. Don't lose your cool. But from psychedelic trips as well, because it is in a way ego shattering. It does in a way expose. It exposes you to yourself. It exposes you that this reality that you personally are experiencing is not the only thing happening right now. Psychedelics have been known to help these things, even like microdosing psilocybin, where you're not getting that actual trip, but it does go in and help rewire your brain. And then
that's something I've done too. And I actually had a near-death experience in the ocean, where I almost got sucked down the ocean. I've talked about several times, but it's funny because it makes me think of a business idea where we could be like, do you have a narcissist in your life? Well, call us up. We'll give them a near-death experience.
We'll drop them in the ocean from 300 feet out of a helicopter.
We'll pick them up in a van and beat them up.
There'll be no gaslighting after that.
Actually, it reminds me of that movie, The Game. Did you ever see that movie, The Game, with what's his name? Michael Douglas, I think, was in it. The guy that was in Romancing the Stone or whatever.
I think so, yeah.
Basically,
a long time ago.
He was like a CEO, this rich guy, and there was this service that somebody got for him. They paid for it, and for one night he thought that he was like being kidnapped and all this crazy stuff was happening, and at the end it could have been real. I don't even know how they left it, but that's what happened. He had to have this whole life shattering experience for him to change. But
yeah, just one other little thing I was researching this a few weeks ago. I believe everything is interconnected. I think that everything is connected. So I was researching gut bacteria, obviously, because on the physical side of things, most people's guts are destroyed. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, chemicals, stress, lack of sleep, all of these things affect us. But there's one particular strain, and I should have written it down. I forgot to. I think it's Reuteri or Reuteri something.
Yeah, Reuteri. Yeah,
Reuteri.
L. Reuteri.
But yeah, but it's a very specific one that they've found when you're deficient in it, um, you lose the capacity, you lose the desire for community, and
Oxytocin.
yeah, exactly.
Did
It's a
you?
precursor to like oxytocin creation. So people
Mhm.
cannot feel bonded to one another. They don't want the community. They lose that bond with their parents, with their children, with their loved ones, everything. So I go, could that partially be playing into this as well? Um,
It could.
I believe so. I believe all of these things are a factor. But yeah, ultimately, the narcissist can change. It is just an intense amount of work over a long period of time. And they have to first admit that they are the problem and then be willing and open to changing. And that is just something that most of them are incapable of doing.
Yeah. I'll just say something about the L reuteri. There was something else I wanted to say if there's time, but what I wanted to say about the L reuteri is that uh my ex-boyfriend and I used to look into like natural healing and stuff like that. He was very into nutrition and health and wellness and stuff. And so he came across I don't know if we both came across or he came across, but the guy who wrote Wheat Belly, doctor, forgot his name at the moment.
Yep.
And he's the one who talks about L reuteri and the benefits of attempting to at least consume it in some way. And he had found a method to make a yogurt from the capsules, from the L reuteri capsules that were being sold online. So he put out like a recipe or whatever. I came across it on some forum and I started making it for me and him. And I thought, hopefully it helps him build some oxytocin and be able to be more, you know, better and heal and stuff. And well, it really didn't. So,
That's fun.
I mean, hey, it may not,
Yeah,
it just depends on the person.
Uh,
yeah.
William Davis is the author. I just looked it up,
Yes.
and I
Thank you,
remember when I
Doctor.
first got into that, I was looking up videos, and I came across this one video of this vegan guy, and he was like tearing the guy apart, but it wasn't anything. It was just like an ad hominem attack, basically. And the guy was like had his shirt off, just look at how jacked I am. I'm a vegan, and fuck this guy. Anyway, it was just the internet's. I love the internet.
Um, One thing I wanted to bring up because from what Nick was saying and then some stuff you were saying, Brandon, um, you were talking, Nick, about how when the child is being exposed to this treatment from his parents, her parents, and all they can do now is go within. It made me think of the things we talk about on our show, which is to go within and do the inner work, right? He goes within, but in a negative aspect, because he only is relying on himself for or he can only trust himself, dare I say. So he can't trust anybody else. However, he still feels like he needs that attention, and so he seeks it and gets the supply, right?
Yeah.
Mind you, I'm just thinking out loud about this topic because it made me think of the okay, going within on one side of the spectrum versus going within on the other side of the spectrum. And I forgot what I was going to say about that, but I don't know, Brandon, if you had any thoughts about that.
Well, I was thinking that exact thing when Nick was talking about that, and I think it's more of like a withdrawal from things. People, they withdraw from community or other people are loving. They go inside and they try to it could be a fantasy world or whatever that they're creating. And it's the same thing though. It could be used in a positive way. Obviously, if you go inside to look within yourself, but I think that's more of like a exploration where this is
Mm-hmm.
more of like a withdrawal for safety or
Mm-hmm.
what's perceived as safety.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was going to try to come up with something, but yeah, thank you.
I'm glad that you brought that up because that's a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about next, um, pertaining to all of these, not just narcissism either, but all the other personality disorders. Is I'll say life. This is going to ruffle feathers. It's my favorite thing to do, apparently.
Do it.
Life doesn't make a lot of sense to me without reincarnation. And
Exactly.
I have been down this path since I was 16 years old. So it has been 20 years almost. I just turned 35. So it's been almost 20 years of me researching this stuff, researching cultures, researching creation stories, researching religions, theologies, just belief systems in general, alternative explanations for things. And it doesn't make sense without reincarnation to me. Everything that I have seen, um, people that I've met in my own life, you'll meet people and you're like, that dude's here for the first time. And then you meet other people and you go, I feel drawn to you because there's something inside of you that feels ancient. Like you have some wisdom inside of you. Um, and I don't think that those are traits that can be acquired in one lifetime.
Mm-mm.
And I think that if you look out into society and you see, the 90-year-old woman who is still acting like a toddler, still narcissistic, she's going to die soon, any day now. She's on borrowed time, but she still cannot self-reflect. And then you see the 4 or the 5-year-old who is better at self-reflecting than that woman
Wise.
is, wise
Yes.
beyond their years. I have a
Yes.
daughter like that. And I have 2 daughters. They are different in so many ways, and it's so fun seeing the differences. But our oldest daughter, who is going to be 5 come March, she's not even 5 yet. And that child is more balanced and more able to self-reflect, and just the capacity for her to self-regulate her own emotions and her attentiveness to listening and to understanding why things are happening is so far beyond most adults that I know. So I go, you have this spectrum of people, right? That seem, there's like a spectrum of wisdom and a spectrum of intelligence and a spectrum of, wokeness or whatever the hell you want to call it. And so I go, where does a narcissist fit into that? And if you look at the narcissist and their behaviors, especially those who have children, it's shocking how similar it is to a toddler.
Yes.
Because the toddler is in a narcissistic state.
Absolutely.
And our role as parents is to gently bring them out of that state. We show them that the world is not out to hurt them. They are safe, they're loved, we give them comfort, and we allow them to come out of that shell into the person that they actually are. That's what we should be doing. Now, most people don't do that, but that's what we should be doing, is to from a biologically, like, survival instinct perspective, what they're doing is not wrong, right? Like, some degree of narcissism makes sense because that's your survival mechanism, right? We show our children that you don't always have to do that. We focus on community, we focus on family, we focus on many hands make light work. And so I look at the narcissist compared to my 4.5-year-old daughter. I see grown men who are not emotionally as mature as my 4.5-year-old daughter. And I go, could it be, making no claims, obviously, because we're on this show, but could it be that from the standpoint of reincarnation being real, that the narcissist would be the equivalent of a spiritual toddler?
Oh, I can see that. That's a
So
great correlation.
so on the micro, it's like we blame it on childhood trauma, and I think that is very true. Like, it's bred into them through their own personal experiences with trauma. But how then does somebody become an empath if they deal? You could have 2 children in a house, and one of them becomes a raging psychopathic narcissist, and the other one becomes an empath who goes on to help people in any way that they can, and they become calm and wise. Why does that happen if every variable in their upbringing was the same? And I really do believe that it's an issue with reincarnation, and just people are on different paths. People have been here different amounts of time. People have learned different things. People have carried some of that with them into their next lives. And I look at the narcissists and I say, they're first timers, basically, right? They're this spiritual toddler who is here going like, fuck, this is crazy. I have to manipulate everybody. And then you look at people who are calm and you go, okay, they've done this before. And that's my theory, my working theory right now. And it makes more sense to me than most things do. There's explanations for why narcissism or borderline or codependent or empath or whatever happen. But I think it's much bigger than that. I think it's a much bigger thing that's taking place.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful, fantastic correlation. It makes a lot of sense to me.
It fits in really well with the law of one stuff that we've talked about so much, because if you think that, I really think we're here to just elevate our consciousness, right? And somebody who has an elevated consciousness, even if they die and are born into another baby or being or whatever, maybe when they're younger, they'll have to deal with a lot of stuff and they get tripped up, but later on, they're going to remember and it's going to come back to them. And then they're going to be able to be, awesome like me and Sharon and you. Or whatever it is. And again, this isn't a judgment. We're not like, I think I could speak for everybody when we say we don't think we're better than other people. It's like if we're in a race or whatever it is, and we're just ahead of people in this, and there's also people ahead of us or whatever it is, there's like stages to it. And I feel like if that's the ultimate goal for our consciousness here, because I talk about all the time how I think we're just energy and we're just having this physical experience. But if for some reason, whatever this energy is, wanted to expand or elevate, it can go through this physical experience, have all these different experiences, deal with it. And in that process, they're going to elevate because they're going to overcome stuff. Maybe when electricity goes to a light bulb, that part of electricity, maybe it has a physical experience and it thinks it's a person and it does all this stuff, and then it becomes light. I mean, who knows how this works? But when you look at it in that context, there's a lot less finger pointing and a lot less victim that you could feel and stuff like that, because
exactly.
I was just going to say that as well. I don't hate the narcissist.
Yeah.
I've had narcissists come directly at me. I've had narcissists try to slander me to very large audiences.
International audiences.
International. Yeah. Whole communities, whole nations, if you will. These people have tried to slander me, and I go, I don't hate them, because it's like, if you see a child exhibiting those narcissistic behavioral traits, you don't hate the child.
No, you have to have
compassion. You don't hate the child. You have compassion. That is what wisdom is. Like,
absolutely.
That is what love is. That is what the one rule is. We don't hate people just because they're
like whatever, like
lower than us. we find gratitude that the Creator has given us an opportunity to try to help those people. And if those people are not open to receiving help yet, then we don't personalize it and we don't get angry. It's not our path. We don't know what their path is. We love them from afar. We wish them well. We pray for them. We do whatever we need to do, but we don't give up on people. My daughter is almost 5 years old, right? As much as I talk about her, and like our younger daughter is, she just turned 3. So there's a difference there. There's almost a 2-year difference. She's entirely different than our oldest daughter, but she's incredibly beautiful and unique in her own way. She's the most affectionate, just wants snuggles. She's loud. She's a category, 19 hurricane most of the time, but she's incredibly loving. But they're just completely different souls, completely different beings on completely different journeys. And I, as a parent, don't hate my younger daughter because she's not exactly like my older daughter or vice versa. I feel blessed that I am given this opportunity to experience their completely different personalities.
Right.
And like, they've been on this earth for 3 and 4.5 years. They have taught me so much about myself. Like, that's why I think it's good to remove yourself, your ego, a little bit from these situations and just look at what is this teaching me. The narcissist maybe, the narcissist may be a 20-year-old girl or a 45-year-old man or a 90-year-old woman. You don't hate them, because if they truly are spiritual infants, toddlers, and you are truly a spiritual adult, it's your job to teach them. It's your job to lead by example. If they you see a narcissist throw a tantrum, it is identical to a child throwing a tantrum.
Yes.
Identical. What's the number one thing that a narcissist does not like that makes them go into a narcissist rage? Being told no. What's the number one thing that causes a toddler to go into a tantrum? Being told no. What happens if you ask a toddler if they did something and you have proof and you're holding it up to them? They lie.
Yes.
Same thing happens with a narcissist. Yes. What happens? Even children can gaslight and manipulate, and they often do. And to me, it is hilarious. I have to turn my head on a daily basis and laugh because I'm watching my 2 beautiful, pure, innocent daughters trying these techniques because they want to see if it'll work. It's the same thing that a narcissist does. And if you really remove your anger from the situation, especially if you've been slighted by a narcissist, if you remove your anger from the situation and you just look at it, it's actually quite funny because the narcissist is a child. But why I say they might be spiritual toddlers as well is because these narcissists have had careers, they have had families, they have lived long lives. A child couldn't do that, right? Like, a child is not going to be able to conduct themselves in society, but the narcissist can. I think that there's a separation there between just this one life and then our true expansive life that unfolds over, many incarnations.
Yeah, I was going to say, it could be possible that people become narcissists without even something happening to them in their childhood that somebody can see or call trauma. It could just be that they are able to manipulate their parents and their parents just put up with it. And that's how they learn how to function as a person. Then they just start manipulating everybody. And then before long, it's just the person that they are.
That's part of their spiritual toddler journey.
Yeah.
And you just like you do like a little child, you're not like, oh, can you be a 20-year-old now? Hello, grow up. No, you're like, I know you're going to be 2. I know you're going to be 3. I know you're going to be 4. I know you're going to be, growing and learning throughout this toddler process. So, I have to be the one who has to be the bigger person, the adult, and help this little child if possible, right? If they're in your life. Now, a person that you don't even know, that's not even in your realm, and they're acting like a narcissist towards you, I think it's safe to just walk away and not give them any attention at all, because clearly they're not in your path. They're not in your journey. You know what I mean?
So I want to make that, I should have said this earlier when I was bringing up narcissism. Narcissism is not just abuse from a negative standpoint. That's another thing that we really need to understand, is that abuse is not just yelling and screaming and hitting and fighting. Narcissists are also equally
mental
bred
abusive
when they are spoiled.
Yeah, like the
that is also
syndrome, right?
Only child syndrome creates narcissists. It's the parents at the grocery store where the child starts throwing a tantrum and the parent says, get whatever you want, just stop crying. That also can breed the narcissist, as much as being emotionally ignored can. Because it doesn't matter if the child is being like screamed at or if the child is being given everything that they want. so that they don't scream, the child is still not having their emotional needs met. They're not being taught, and they're learning that they can get whatever they want,
Well, they are
whether from
being
a place
taught,
of
right?
survive. Yeah. Whether from a
Yeah.
place of survival, or this is just how the world is. When I scream, I get what I want. So yeah, that's very important to understand as
That's
well.
mind blowing to me because I've seen my nieces, and sometimes when they're around my parents, or just like my oldest niece who just is turning 9 this week, actually. Happy birthday, Laura. She's great. She's not like a narcissist or whatever, but I remember when she was younger, she'd kind of have everybody wrapped around her finger. And I was really the only one. And my brother, too, her dad doesn't really put up with that, too. He kind of gets it. But everybody else would just be like stepping and fetching and jumping around and trying to like please her, and I was like the only one who would say no or whatever. And she liked me the most, which was hilarious.
Something that Sharon just said too about if you're dealing with the narcissist or trying to be a narcissist towards you, you can just walk away. Yes, that's how I parent my daughters. When they get into, because they're great, but they're still toddlers. They still throw fits and tantrums, and when they do that, this will ruffle feathers. Anything having to do with parenting is really ruffles feathers. I don't yell at them. I don't put them in timeout. I don't gaslight them. I don't threaten them with any punishment. I don't make them feel guilty. None of that. What I do is classified as gentle parenting, and it's not something that I literally have never looked it up. I just know that it's classified as this. I've never studied it. It just came naturally, intuitively to me. This is how I parent my children. Is I will validate their emotions that they're having. First off, that's where I start, is by validating them. Now, I'm not saying that I agree or anything. I'm just saying that I understand that you're having these emotions.
You just listen.
I listen. I ask them questions. I say, are you having big feelings right now? Yeah. Okay. What big feelings are you having right now? Oh, I don't know. Okay. I guide them through this. Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling frustrated? What's going on? Talk to daddy. And then they will open up slowly and talk to me. I'm teaching them how to self-regulate their emotions. Mm-hmm. It is exhausting for me because it comes naturally to me, right? So I don't want to take 10 minutes, just stop what I'm doing. But I so strongly see the importance of that. And I go, I would be doing my children a disservice if I did not do that for them. That is love. That's sacrifice. I could be in the middle of working and have to stop everything that I'm doing. But I also don't allow them to speak to me like that. Mm-hmm. If they're in what we would classify as a little narcissist rage, right? Because they're toddlers, they're in that narcissist headspace. I don't put up with it. If my kid screams at me, that's it. That's done. They don't get screamed at in return, right? But I go, okay, Daddy's not going to allow you to talk to me like that. I'm not going to engage with you if you're talking to me like that. When you're ready to come talk to daddy like a big girl and you've processed, you've gone through your emotions, then come talk to me. But I'm not going to yell like that with you. And it's like 30 seconds every time. They might cry a little bit, have their wind down, and then they'll come, okay, daddy, I'm ready to talk now. And then they come at me with whatever's going on with them. That's what you are ultimately doing to a narcissist as well. You don't have to put up with that shit. If a narcissist tries to get you into that dehumanizing, devaluing stage, no, walk away. It's a narcissist's job to work on themselves. It's not your job to fix them like that. But you also don't walk away hating them. You walk away with an understanding that they are where they are, basically.
Exactly. Something really, really odd and interesting that happened when I started dating the ex-boyfriend I was talking about, is we would constantly get into these back and forths, these arguments, these things. And at one point it was so weird. I thought it was the weirdest thing. I had never heard this before. He told me, can we just approach each other, or can you just approach me like I'm a little boy, like I'm a little child, and show me the love that you would for a little child? And it was just weird, mind blowing. I had never, no one had ever said that to me. I'd never heard anyone say that before as an adult, and
That's
it
what's
made
weird. Yeah.
sense. It made sense. I was like, yeah, we should approach each other with the love of, a little child toward, and, and looking at each other as if we were a little child, because it's an innocence, right? And
Yeah.
maybe that was his way of, because maybe he was just so traumatized or whatever, and had this big shell and he just couldn't get out. And that was his way of like, please understand me.
Yeah. And that's like, I saw that like in elementary school. Narcissists, like a great mental exercise is to think about it like as elementary school where everybody is children. All the children are there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're watching these things happen, the narcissist is like the sixth grader who's trying to impress third graders with how cool and awesome they are and how much of a hero they are and how they're so good at magic and they have the best Pokemon card collection and they're so good at basketball and all this stuff, right? Like that's what the narcissist is. And then the empath is on the playground, like not trying to start any trouble, right? They're just out there trying to enjoy themselves and, people please. If they have to be the person standing against the wall getting the ball thrown at them, they'll do it just as long as everybody else is having fun and nobody's going to get upset or angry. That's the empath. So it's like what I feel like in that situation, especially having dealt with narcissists over the course of my life and then a pretty extreme one recently. In that scenario, I feel like the teacher, the monitor out on the playground looking at the narcissist being like, why isn't he playing with other sixth graders? Why does he have no friends? Why is he trying to impress third graders? Like it's weird, but you also get it because when I was in elementary school, those people, those problem children who were out on, bullying and they thought they were the best. I saw a couple times teachers and faculty lose their patience, but more often than not, I saw them just sit down and try to communicate. And it's like the faculty, the teachers, the monitors out on recess, they knew that this child came from a damaged home. They knew this child was not getting what they needed. This child was on free lunch. This child came in with dirty clothes. This child came in and never had anything new. You can put those pieces together and say there's trauma there. And the teachers often led from a place of love, not from anger, not from any of this stuff. And I think that you need to carry that out into the real world as well. The narcissists, like you can still love them, but it doesn't mean that you have to accept that behavior. And if you feel that you want to try to help them, then good on you. I think that's beautiful. In Hinduism, they call it the bodhisattva. When you've reached the point of enlightenment, and you could go on, you could leave this realm, but you choose to come back and help people. It's the most highly honored thing in Hinduism is for somebody to do that, because there's truth to that. Helping people is incredible, but also don't let yourself become a doormat for other people's trauma.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you should look at the intentions on why you're doing it, right? Why you're trying to help people. Is it to make yourself feel like you have a purpose or something, or is it because you're actually
It's always about intention.
and what kind of
100%.
effect is it having on you internally? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you do it to it's something I've been thinking about lately too, is the whole like intention of why you're doing something. And if you're like, let's say you want to provide a service to people and help people, I mean, even that, why are you doing it? Are you doing it to truly help people? Are you doing it for the attention? Are you doing it
Self-preservation, because
to
if I heal the world, then nobody can hurt me again.
yeah. So it's all, we always have to self-reflect and do that. But So it sounds like we have just a quick lull in the discussion, but I wanted to go back to that book that I was telling you guys about. It's actually called The Human Magnet Syndrome. I will put a link in the description. It's by a guy named Ross Rosenberg, and he actually renames this, word codependency. And you can like, I think codependency, empath, I think those are probably synonymous. But what he renames it, because he doesn't like the connotations of it, like there's kind of negative connotation to the word codependent. He calls it self-love deficit disorder.
I like that term a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pertinent.
Yeah.
Have you read there's a book called The Inner Work? Have you read that?
No.
I've skimmed through it, and it seems like I'm actually probably going to read it. It seems incredible. They have a lot of breakdowns in it of if you're having this emotion or if you have this fear, this is the actual wound that caused it, and this is how you work through it. These are alternative ways that actually let you let go of that wound or heal that wound.
Awesome.
It seems very very palatable compared to a lot of these psychiatry type books.
Nice.
And that's on Amazon as well.
Does it have like a stars in the background, like
Yes, it's like a blue and white cover or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll link it in the description too.
There's also just because this is in the same topic, there's a book. My wife is reading it right now. I'm going to read it when she's done with it. It's about trauma, and I think it's called It Didn't Start With You. And she's talked to me about a couple stories from that book, and it's pretty fascinating. He's a longtime psychologist who wrote the book, but he talks about generational trauma and how it's passed through the DNA, which is fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's another whole topic in itself, but how those traumas can be passed from generation to generation through the DNA. And they've done a lot of studies like that with animals and stuff, right? They'll put rats in the thing, and then they'll have a bird come in and attack, and then 10 generations later, they don't even have to put a bird anymore. They can just hold their hand in front of the light and there's a shadow, and then they all freak out because they inherently know what that means. But yeah, I think ultimately everything, as I've always said, and I will always maintain, everything starts with fear. As a child, you fear that you're not going to have your needs met. You fear that you're not going to be safe. You're not going to be loved, whatever it is. And then we carry that on through life. And it was, same with empaths. They fear that they're not going to be loved. Everybody fears that they're not going to be loved. And that's why I think that there might be something to this reincarnation hypothesis that I've been stewing over is no one is more fearful than the narcissist. The narcissist is terrified of everything, which is why they have blocked out the ability to love people, because they're so terrified of living that they don't even accept love and they don't allow themselves to love. And then the other end of that, like if that's the bottom, the other end of it would be like the figure of Jesus, right? That Christ consciousness. Have no fear, do not be afraid, fear not. Just reiterating that hundreds of times. Fear truly is the mind killer.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it really is.
You just said, when you said like they don't allow themselves to be loved, and I'm not saying this is only a narcissistic trait, because it could, like we said, we can have the traits and not be a narcissist, but for him, he had a very hard time receiving a gift. So like I could give him gifts out of the kindness of my heart, just like buy him these things for his birthday or for Christmas or whatever. And I'd be like excited to be like getting him something that I knew he was going to like, or that I was like excited for him to open. And he just didn't know how to respond.
That's it was real thing.
Very weird.
You know what's weird about that too is a lot of people like that. And I know this because I am one of those people. I talk a lot on here. I'm not perfect. I don't want anybody to think that I'm ever saying I'm perfect. I am horribly damaged. horribly traumatized. And I like the show because it's a way for me almost to kind of work through that, just brainstorming, bouncing stuff off you guys.
That's why we have it.
But I'm one of those people. I'm a gift giver. I'm a giver in general. I'm constantly doing things for other people and don't know how to receive. It makes me feel weird, kind of, in a way. It makes me feel uncomfortable. But my birthday was in August, and my youngest daughter, my wife took my kids shopping, asked them, Daddy's birthday's coming up. What do you want to get for my youngest daughter? My wife told me afterwards, said that she wanted to get me a teddy bear, and she asked her for like a week. Are you sure you want to get him a teddy bear? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, hey, why do you want to get him a teddy bear so bad? And she goes, because we have teddy bears, but Daddy doesn't have a teddy bear. Daddy needs a teddy bear. And like, she gave that to me, and I bawled. Like, I bawled like a child. And it's like, people can laugh at me or whatever, but that shit hits your inner child. That your inner child is not gone. It's still who you are. It's behind all these walls and defense mechanisms and coping and behavioral patterns and stuff that think that you're going to stop the world from hurting you. A child is still there. And
it's
like when when my daughter did that to me, if I had like this weird nostalgic, like, time is not linear flash of being a child.
Wow.
It's like she gave it to my inner child, and I bawled, and she gave me a hug, and just, this is the little, category 6,000 hurricane that just runs around the house screaming. She just stopped and just sat on my lap, and she just squeezed me and held me for like 30 seconds. And it was surreal. And yeah, so like, people can
That's profound.
be unable to receive. But that's a trait of an empath, right? You do everything for everybody else. But ultimately, although that is where we should be, we should focus on community. We should focus on helping each other grow, caring for each other, having each other's backs. The empath is doing it from a place of survival as well. And that's speaking about myself personally. Because the empath goes, if I do this for all of these people, then they're going to love me more because I'm giving them things. And then it's almost like a form of buying love from people. It's still from a place of trauma. It's still from a place of like deep trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like giving out of abundance. You're giving from a place of abundance instead of a place of lack. The
right
way, because that the love is everywhere, and you could just love yourself. And I think that really is the issue this all comes down to, is people don't love themselves, and we're taught basically to not, so it's not really a surprise that they do. That's why, again, we say we're not making judgments here. We're just making statements.
Speaking from experience too.
Yeah, speaking from experience as well in our lives and the things that we've seen. 100%.
That's honestly, that's the only way that I've ever found any healing, is actually talking about it. And like, because like a weird thing happens when you get into your mind. You start to try to justify things, and you try to start coping with things. But even something as simple as being on this podcast and like just what I said, like I'm a severe empath. Like, I don't like confrontation. I don't like chaos. I don't like any of that. I give to everybody but I understand that now, that's inside of me. And it has helped me shift away from it. Like, now when I give to people, I just do it because like, I love seeing people be happy. I love that friendship aspect of it. Like, that's what makes life fun. I have a friend in Utah who we started sending random books to each other last year, just because, like, I sent him a copy of The Hobbit or something, and then I got a book back in return, and I was like, whoa. And then it's morphed, right? So we're just trying to like one up each other right now. But I think that those are the things that make life fun, because he's got a beautiful baby girl and we've got our two girls, and neither of us are rich by any means. But it's like when we have a few extra bucks, we'll get each other something cool and send it to each other. That's what makes life fun. You shouldn't be doing it from a place of like trying to buy love, but just appreciating love, right? Valuing love, honoring love. And that could be with a partner or family or friends or whatever. Honor the love. Don't try to manipulate the love into existence.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, what do you think, Sharon?
Any final thoughts? I think this has been great.
Yeah, it really has. And I'm glad that you look at our show as a way that you could come and do some self-healing and growth. And we'll be sure to send you the bill for our psychological expertise. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. No,
Well,
I
we
do.
also do it for self.
Yeah,
healing.
totally. Because this helps us too. That's the whole reason we do this show. You know, so many people ask me when I tell them I have a podcast, they're like, "Oh, do you make money?" And I'm like, "No, I don't make money, but it helps me, you know, from going around and like killing people now." I mean,
Right.
Woke raping
Yeah.
people.
yeah, it helps
Well,
you that too, right? Some people probably rather have that than
it is it's just great because I think a lot of people have a lot of these thoughts, but if you don't have an outlet to talk about them to other people with, then they get lost in the ever flowing thought ether in your brain, and then you could lose out on potential chances to really find some deep healing. So I think that's why I love coming on here, is because I'll have a thought that in years past would have just slipped by, but now I get to come on here and share it with you guys, and then really talk about it. It's really fun for me. So I appreciate you guys having me be apparently a regular on the show, because I know I ramble and consume a lot of the time, but
yeah,
just
no, that's
hashing
what
these
we're
things
here
out
for.
is great.
That's what
Like
it's for.
you're literally providing content for us. Like we should be paying you. I was joking about, you know, like you come out now that I mean, if we were making money, then we would have to be like, you know, or we'd share the love. But that's really, I think, what it's all about. And I think that's how you do help people and have community. And that's really what
I
I'm
was going to
about.
say that community building, just being able to talk about these things together.
Well,
Go on, Brandon.
this is how we heal. This is why these things are happening in the first place, because we didn't have the first community that we should have had, which was the family in our homes, in our very homes. So if you want to heal those wounds, then you need to recreate that, and you're not going to ever recreate it with your own family because you realize how damaged they are. So when you find like-minded people who are open to talking about these things and aren't coming from a place of judgment or control, hold on to that, because community is very important. Not fake communities, not, you know, the LARPing style communities, but real communities where it's like there's a mutual respect and understanding that we're all extremely damaged and we're going to try to help each other.
Yeah, I think the key to when you're looking at community is to look at what the common denominator is that keeps everybody together. And if it's like a dogmatic thing where you have to think certain way, or, you know, if one person says something, now automatically, you know, this is gay and you can't like it.
It's judgmental. It's very highly judgmental.
Yeah, because that's very unstable, and that's going to lead people to behavior that's just going to be false. Because say you like to skateboard and this guy's like, fucking skateboarding is gay. And then you're like, God damn it, I still want to hang out with all my friends, but they might think I'm, you know,
a loser,
homosexual because I get on a skateboard or whatever it is, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. And again, a lot of it might be comedy, but at the end of the day, if that's really what it is, and that's what we talk about in the show all the time, common denominators, like prioritize what you think is important in somebody. Is it because they're going to have your back and they're honest and they're just a good person? That's enough for me. I don't care what magical god they pray to in the sky or the ground or whatever. You know, as long as they're a good person, I know I can rely on them. Are they going to reciprocate if I help them? Or are they going to help me when I need it? You know, it's stuff like that.
Right.
100%. Yeah. Community has been hijacked a little bit. So I'm really grateful for this one and just being able to hang out with you guys and talk.
Yeah. And again, you know, none of us really views ourselves as victims. So all the things that we go through in our life, we see the purpose and the reason for it. And that's something that I've been trying to do. Everything that happens to me, I'm like, why is this happening? You know, if something it's even terrible or bad, I'm like, what can this
Yeah.
be teaching me or telling me? You know, if that's the
Yes.
first thought that you have
Yes.
and you're kind of grateful for it, even if it is something that's
Yes.
terrible,
Yes.
it's just a game changer. You know, it's mind blowing.
It's
Absolutely.
incredible what happens when you
Yes.
view other people as other people and not dollar signs, huh?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah,
actually have real meaningful relationships. Yep.
yeah. Or you're coming from that relationship not out of a place of fear, because like, you know, if you're afraid that you're going to lose people and lose your living and all this stuff, the way you're making a living, if you don't uphold a certain standard, then you can never really be yourself. And
No.
it's just going to be another cycle that
Yeah.
you
And
go.
that works for a while, but it's not maintainable. You can't maintain it forever. Eventually that veil gets ripped off.
Yeah.
100%. And then, you
And
know,
Yep.
you lose the
what
people that are
we
closest to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what we do here is we self-reflect, and that's the key, like you were saying earlier, talking about the narcissist's inability to self-reflect. It really is maturity, because if the narcissist truly is that spiritual toddler, it's just a toddler. There's nothing wrong with it being a toddler.
There's a big wave right now, especially on TikTok, painting narcissists as evil.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
no. Are
Yeah.
children evil? No,
No.
I'd argue they're the complete
Yeah.
opposite. I would
Yeah.
argue that they're as close to um, as pure as a human being can get.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
just pit
Absolutely.
and pedestal stuff. You know, you're putting one on a
Absolutely.
pedestal, one on pit. And that's why I don't, that's why I kind of said something when we were talking about narcissist and can they be healed? Because I think if you just say that somebody can't be healed, it gives them the license to then just be the biggest victim in the world, you know? So,
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
I
But
don't
like,
know. I'm not
would you
making,
ask that question? Could a child be healed? It's
yeah,
like, what
But
does a
it
child need to
doesn't make
heal from?
sense.
The child
Yeah,
doesn't
then
need to heal. The child just needs time to learn and grow.
yes.
exactly. And they
So it's
can
like,
Exactly.
grow.
can the
I,
narcissist grow?
Yeah.
100%. It
yeah.
just
Over
takes
many
time.
lifetimes, perhaps,
Yep.
right?
Micro and
Yeah.
macro. Yeah. A
Right.
child grows into adulthood. A spiritual child will eventually grow into spiritual adulthood. It just takes some time.
And because we were talking about reincarnation, I will just bring this up very quickly, which is the whole veil of forgetfulness. This is what they call it in the law of one, because a lot of people will say, well, you know, if we're here to reincarnate and learn our lessons, how do we learn them if we forgot? Well, what you don't realize is for this physical reality to actually work, we have to believe in it 100%. Well, maybe not 100%, but we have to at least have doubt
Believe that it's real. Like,
that, yeah, that it's real, right? That maybe this, you know, we have to have sometimes maybe doubts that maybe the physical is the real, is more important, and we couldn't have that if we didn't have this veil of forgetfulness. But I think
yeah.
there is a part of us, maybe our spiritual part or our higher self or whatever it is you want to call it, that does register that. So when you do come back or whatever happens during reincarnation, you get a blank slate, but then you're also at that next level that you get to work on. So then you have a whole different set of circumstances that you have to overcome, a new kind of resistance, if you will. You know, it's like when you're lifting out, when you're working out at the gym or whatever. You know, you can look
Yeah.
at it that way. Say somebody works out really hard, but they forget who they are every day, but they still work out. They can still become a bodybuilder. They just don't know exactly, you know, what's going on with that or whatever. But I look at it in that way, and that's kind of how I would overcome that. Because I think if you're questioning why there's a veil of forgetfulness or why do we forget, why can't we just remember? It'd be so much easier. You sound kind of like a victim, you know.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
I almost look at reincarnation as like the potential to go further with each cycle, which means that
Mhm.
taking that journey within the lifetime is going to happen at an exponentially faster rate than it did at the last lifetime, which I think plays into this as well. Like I said, you can see a 90-year-old woman who is still a narcissist, still acting like a toddler. But then you have my 4.5-year-old who is more wise and balanced than most adults that I know are. I think that everybody's going to go through the same cycles in life, the same stepping stones of growth. But I think the further you are along that spiritual incarnation cycle, the faster that you go through those, which means that you can obtain more knowledge down the road. if that makes sense, if I explain that well. It's like the first time around, you might find the narcissist whose entire 90 years, 95 years of life is spent just trying to understand that they cannot get the toy, right? That's their whole life. And then 100 lives later, you have a child who's born, and by 5 years old, they're understanding to be good to people and to love people and to apologize and to do all of these things.
Yeah, I like that. And there could be a possibility that, you know, just like we mature differently in one lifetime, how spiritually that could happen too. Like somebody could go through, many lifetimes still being the narcissist in the 3D reality and not being able to learn and grow from that until whenever. Because it really truly has to be something that when they, like, because of the veil of forgetfulness Brandon was talking about, maybe they just, for whatever reason, they just can't remember that they are a being that has the capability to be better. Like, and they don't allow the experience, they don't do the self-reflection and allow the experiences that happen to them cause them to say, but why is this happening to me on cycles over and over again? Like, I keep seeing this, or I keep doing this, or I keep getting into car accidents, or I keep getting XYZ, right? What is that? Like, if you can't self-reflect and do that, maybe you get stuck for a little while.
Yeah. And it's like traumas can be passed generationally, and it's pretty trippy to think about. Like, if your grandmother was pregnant with your mother and experienced a trauma, your mother was inside of her, and half of you was already formed as an egg inside of your own mother.
Mm-hmm.
You had 3 generations experiencing that trauma at the same time. So it's like, if these traumas can be passed generationally, who's to say that they cannot be passed over lifetimes within yourself? Like, maybe you experience something that was so traumatic that you need 3 or 4 go arounds to really experience enough for you to feel safe again, and then move beyond that. Who knows? Nobody knows.
Right.
But that's what makes the most sense to me. I look at the opposite end of that, which is, this is the only life you will ever live, and you have to do it this exact certain way, or else you're going to burn for eternity in a pit of fire that Dante created and then got enveloped into the fire. And I go, that seems that to me is sadistic.
Yes, that's not a benevolent God.
That is satanic to me.
That is not a benevolent.
That is fear-inducing, manipulative.
Yes.
And then if you say, hey, that doesn't seem right, and somebody says, oh, you're crazy, that sounds like gaslighting to me.
Exactly.
It all just is not from a place of love to me at all.
I concur. That's the realization I had to come to make sense of reincarnation for myself, because I'd been presented with that back when I was a Christian, and I was just like, no, because I was indoctrinated to believe that was only like a Eastern thing with the Hindus and the Indians and stuff like that from India. That's that, so, that's not my religion. My religion doesn't believe in that. But over time, as I started really looking into just logically thinking, going within, asking myself questions, and just being logical about it, it didn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense, especially especially when you become a parent. There is nothing that my children could ever do that would make me stop loving them. There's nothing that my children would ever do that would make me cast them into a pit of fire and torment them. My heart shatters the handful of times where I've actually had to do that, deep dad bark at my children when they're just getting really out of hand. My heart is shattered just from knowing that I used a tone of voice that was not what I usually use. There's nothing that could ever cause me to be able to do that to my children. So when I see this narrative being passed around that if you don't do XYZ and you don't say
Within one
XYZ,
lifetime.
all within one lifetime while being bombarded with just trauma
Negativity and
and
trauma.
negativity and poisons in your air and food and water so that your brain, your receiver can't even function right. Your heart can't function right. Your second brain, your gut can't function right. No, it not for me.
It falls
Not for
apart.
me.
It really falls apart really fast.
Not for me. That is a to me a systemic, unparalleled level of manipulative control and psychological abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Religions control people.
they do. And I'm not saying that that the lessons that you can extract from religions are not true, because they are, and they're beautiful, and they are the truth. The truth is in them. The control mechanism in it is psychotic to me. It's psychotic levels of abuse on people. But yeah, like the control is bad, but the lessons and the truth inside of it are good. My take, anyways. Everybody's on their own journey. Everybody needs whatever they need in this moment.
Yes,
That's where I am at in this moment.
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I hear you 100%.
Well,
Well, I guess we should give a shout out to the chat really quick. Thank you guys so much for hanging out all the way to the end, especially if you made it this far. And if you're watching
2 hour mark.
sometime in the future, what's that?
2 hour mark in 1 minute.
Yeah. And
Look at that.
if you're watching this sometime in the future, every Thursday we premiere these. We either premiere these or we have a live, so you can join us in the chat for both of such occasions and hang out with us. And if you'd like to support us, we always say the best way to support us is just subscribe, like the video, share it around, comment, let us know what you feel, what you think. Let us know your feelings on all this stuff. And you can also go to morelawsmoreproblems.com, click on the Oversharing tab, and there's several ways to support us there. And I'd like to thank you again, Nick, for being a regular and coming on. And just so you know, when you're on here, it's great because it feels like you get to do all the heavy lifting, and then I just get to snipe here and be like the fun guy, and share the same thing. So that's how we feel about this, just so you know. So I don't want you ever to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I'm like, you could talk.
No, yeah,
like,
talk. We'll just, we'll just sprinkle in the
yeah.
I'm a huge and hilariously, I'm a huge interrupter. So I always think that everybody else wants to, and then I feel like I'm overtaking it. But yeah, that's true.
No,
I
yeah.
used to be an interrupter. I had to learn not to be.
Yeah.
My nickname became autocomplete when I used to work where I used to work. It was terrible. It was the beginning of my like self-reflection of things, because I was like, I had to laugh. I'm like, yeah, I do. Sorry about that.
That's a hilarious nickname.
Like, I just thought
That
I was
was
helping
funny.
everybody. I didn't know. It's tough on a podcast though, especially when you're not in the same room with somebody. So I've been on podcasts that are way worse with interruptions, so I'm not even worried about it. And plus, I think it leads to a good place. So,
Yes.
but yeah, I just wanted to say that to you. Thank you again so much for coming on, and obviously, thank you, Sharon, for lending your name to the title of the show and being such
thank you for naming it.
a constant rock for us to have these great conversations. It's like,
thank you.
The other half. You complete me with the Oversharing show, Sharon. You
Aww.
complete the Oversharing show. I'm the over. You're the Sharon. All right, guys.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And thanks everybody for hanging out. And
Yeah. Much love to the chat.
And we will see you next week. What do we say to the good people, Sharon?
That once you start oversharing,
then you totally stop being a Karen. And remember, everybody, we're not telling you how to live,
but maybe just giving you some anecdotes of our experiences. How about that?
Yeah.